Hi everybody. It took a little longer than I thought it would take, but finally I'm here with a video showing how to create external light maps using 3dsMax and Corona, and also Vray. I'm going to show in one video both of the renderers because they share a lot of the workflow is almost the same in regards to render to texture or UV mapping and everything. The only different thing is about the type of element you're gonna have to bake. So let's begin. I have this little scene here with this box and a sphere, and this box has a texture. Let me open this texture here. Okay. And it is unwrapped in two channels. The channel 1, actually they both channels are unwrapped the same way in this case, but you don't need to do this, of course. Like this sphere here, I have the channel 1 and channel 2, and they have different mappings, because for the channel 1 I'll use, for instance, to texture it, and I chose this type of unwrapping because it's pretty easy to texture, and you just, it's like half an orange, and you texture this and this, and everything's fine. But for the second UV channel here, I choose to unwrap like this because I can use more space on the UV layout. Okay, because I'm not going to texture anything in here. This will be used for the light mapping. So as much space you can get out of your geometry to fit in here, the better resolution you're going to have your light map. So, but I'm going to focus on this box in here. So let me render. I'm with a Corona renderer here. There's a Corona area light, and that's it. That's simply this. The sphere is reflective. The walls are not. Let me render and show to you. Let me pause a little bit while it renders. So as it's finishing rendering, I want to point out something here. In Corona, I like to monitor this noise level here, and from my experience, I noticed that whenever it is below 4, this is way below 4 for now, I can just stop, and the Corona denoiser will eliminate the noise of the image, and it does a pretty good job at this. And I like to use this amount here, 8 something, 9. But if you go to 1, it sometimes produces a bending artifact. So I like to leave it 8, 9, and you can tweak it later after it finishes denoising the image. You can tweak it later, and you can save as whatever you want. So this is the image I end up with. It has a nice reflection. It has a spill from the red wall, from the blue wall here. You see the green from the sphere. You see green here up the top. So how can we get this lighting situation here, this exact lighting image, to Unity? How can we get this light map out of 3dsMax? So the way to do this, let me show you, is via the render to texture. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's very straightforward. And let me close everything, because if you see everything opened, it can be a little bit of a complicated. It's complicated. So first things first, I'll click the object, okay, and in the general settings, this is where I'll output my image, my light maps. Okay, I leave it at a place. You can leave it wherever you want. Now the objects to bake. Whatever object you click, here is the box walls. If I click here, it's the sphere. Whatever object you click, it's going to be the object to bake, right? Now the padding, for now, I'm going to leave the padding to 2. I'm going to explain the padding later because it's very important to Unity. Let me see here. The projection mapping is for when you're trying to bake normals from a high resolution mesh to a low poly mesh, and there's nothing to do with what we are doing here. So now the mapping coordinates, as I told you, I manually unwrapped this for the second channel. So I'm going to use existing channel and channel 2, and by the way, even if you use automatic unwrap, make sure you put it to the channel 2 because as I told on the other videos of Standard Plus Shader, the second UV channel is the one that Standard Plus is going to look for your UV layout to apply your light map. So always export it with the second UV channel and do your render to texture, your lighting, your light map to the second UV channel. So this is it. Now on the output, now here's a question. What element, what would I render, out of this? So most people come in here and say, okay, I'm gonna add, let me see, the Corona light, okay, because, well, we only need the light. We don't want the texture. We don't want this red, this blue, or if this was a brick wall or anything, or a wallpaper. We don't want that. We just want the light map, because the texture you're going to put on the albedo channel in Unity, right? And you can change whatever texture you want to put at the time. So I just want the light. So, you first look at here and you say, okay, oh, that's the Corona light. That's the one. Okay? And you put Corona light, and you give it a name here, box walls, and be sure to render this as an HDR, a radiance, okay? Because it'll save all the lighting information. You can use standard RGB channel. You don't even have to use this non-clamped. Use this one. And okay, here on the target map slot, you don't need to select any of this. You can leave to blank. Why this? Why they put this target map slot? It's because on the render to texture workflow that a lot of people used to do. I don't know if people use it anymore with this purpose, but when you do this, you render the texture, and when it is finished, max apply the texture onto the material itself, onto the material that I have here for the walls. It will apply the render texture again in this material, and this you would choose in which slot the texture would go. But I don't want any of that. I just want to render to files. So I just need to come here, down here, and click render to files only. And I don't need to care about any of these things in here, or target map slot, or output into source, or anything like that. I just want it to render to files. Okay? And I'm going to set the size of my light map, and I'll click render, and that's just it. Okay, so when it begins to render, you notice something strange, because okay, I told it to render just a light, the Corona light, but look, it is rendering the texture. It is rendering the light from the walls, the texture. What is this? So what happens is this Corona light element is not the light that is coming to the surface. It's everything that is coming out of the surface. So of course the surface here is red. It is rendering the red part, the red texture. Okay, so this is not what we want. And Vray is the same thing. You have in Vray. Let me choose here. Let me change. Oh, I can try to see here. Vray. You have a lot of, you see Vray total light map, Vray lighting map, Vray raw total lighting map. All these things produce more or less that same result. You know, they capture the texture too, and that's not what we want. So how do we get only the lighting? It's very simple. What we have to do is, I have a material, okay, here, and I create another one called simply white. And it's a pure white material, okay, with no reflection, no refraction whatsoever. By the way, if your material is translucent, you have to put here the same translucency amount as your material. You know, if you're rendering a lamp, fabric, and it is translucent, you have to put the same amount in here. That's the only thing you have to worry here. But otherwise, it's a pure white material, and I put a 230 value. And I'm still not sure if you should put 255 here or just a reasonable value, because you know that no material reflects 100% of the light, so it's never a good idea to put 255. So I'm just going to put 230 or so here. But I'm not really sure, because this is going to be not going to be the material per se. The material is this one. This is going to be just the visible part of the light map, so perhaps it can go to 255. But okay, never mind. I just put 230. Okay, so now you have this material, pure white, and you have your material with the texture and etc. Now the magic comes in here. You gotta select a material called Corona Ray Switch material. Okay, and it comes like this, and it comes plugged with another material here. Just delete this. So how does this work? The Corona Ray Switch has 4 slots, right? For the first 3 slots here, global illumination, reflect, refract, you plug in your material. You see? You plug in your material. And this direct override actually is for the camera, the visible material for the camera. And you put the white. Now, for all intents and purposes, this material here produces the global illumination of this one, the reflection, the refraction of your material. You know, it is your material. But for the camera, it is not. For the camera, it is pure white. So that's exactly what we want. Now you put the material to the object, okay, and let's render again. Now what we have is we don't have anymore the texture coming here in the renderer. Now essentially what we are getting here is everything here is light coming to these panels, to these surfaces. You know, this red, this green, this blue, they are not from this specific plane. These things are coming elsewhere. The red is coming from this, the blue is coming from this, the green is coming from the sphere. So everything here is light that is coming to these specific surfaces. So that's exactly what we want. This is a light map. This is the light map standard shader, standard plus shader is expecting. You know, because the texture, you're going to put whatever you want. So that's it for Corona, and that's pretty much what you need. You just expect a little bit less noise, you know, and you stop and everything. So you have your light map here. Now let me show you in the Vray case, which is the same thing actually. Let me choose the Vray configuration here in a moment. Okay, now I have the same scene here, but I set it up for Vray, and if I try to render this, it's the same thing, but using Vray. The same red spilling from the walls, the blue, the red here, the green here, green here. Now, for Vray is exactly the same thing. Let's go to the render to texture, and let's open our material. So in Vray, what you need to do, much like Corona, you've got to have your material. You got to have a white material here for the camera, and you have to choose this one. It is called, let me see, Vray override material. Essentially, this is a ray switch material, but they call it Vray override material. But it's exactly the same thing. So you have to. So the order in which you plug things are a little bit different. But your material goes here on the GI, on the reflection, on the refraction, on the shadow. They have this shadow options here. But for the camera, which is the base here, material, you plug the white. And that's the same thing. And you go here and you do this. Okay? Now, when you see the image, this is what happens. Exactly like Corona. You know, the red is spilling from the red wall, even though you see it's white. But that's okay, because you know this all this light here, this light that is coming from the outside, of the surfaces. None of this red belongs to this one. None of this green belongs to this one. So it's all correct. What you have to do now is, and I think I forgot to mention in the Corona part, when you select here, you just have to select Vray complete map. If you're working with Corona, you just select Corona Beauty. That's it. You select here the maximum, the beauty one, the beauty pass. You know, being at the Vray complete or the Corona Beauty. You just select that because your material, your white material, it doesn't have anything. It's just a white material. It just doesn't have reflection, refraction, or anything. So you're pretty much good by selecting the Vray complete map. Okay, you change the name of the file, leave this blank as I explained. So you go to 1024. You know, don't forget to see which channel, you know, you're going to put channel 2, existing channel 2, and you hit render, you know, and this is it, exactly like in the Corona render. It'll make your perfect light map, right? Now, one thing I have to mention, I want to talk about the padding. I told you I was going to say about the padding, that it's important. And what is it? Okay. When you render the texture, the software will not render the other panels exactly on top of these panels here. It will leave a little bit of a padding here, and this is the amount of padding you wish. So if I put 2, it will put 2 pixels. It will render 2 pixels more here, you know. You're going to see, let me just render this again. You can see the effect. Overwrite. And well, you won't be able to see here because It's just 2 pixels. It makes no difference. But let's put this padding here to a big number, 15. Right? Now look, when we render, see that everything is almost touching itself because it is render what you have to render, but it's render a lot more, even to the point where it is touching, the panels are touching the other ones. And why do you have padding? It's because mainly because of the bitmap process in Unity. When you're seeing an object from really a near distance, you know, a wall, when you're close to a wall, and you're going to see everything fine, but as you go further away, you know, the render is going to begin showing outside of the panels. It's going to it will begin to show this color here, you know, and you're going to have artifacts. So a good thing to do is always make some kind of padding here. Perhaps 15 is too much. I'm going to leave a padding of 10. You see now they're not touching. And when you unwrap your objects, you have to take that padding into account. You can't unwrap things really close to one another here because you won't have the space for padding. When Max does this, when you click here and you choose Tools, Pack UVs, this is the padding. It tells you, oh, how much padding you want. 2. If I want more padding here, for instance, 4. You see, it leaves more space to them. Okay, if you don't want padding, if you want very little padding, you can put like 0.5 or something like this. You know, now you see they are almost touching each other. You don't have space for that. For the padding of the rendered texture is going to produce some errors. So make sure if you're packing your UVs here or on other UV laying software, you leave some nice padding here so Max can render a little bit more. Okay, so that's it. This is how you export your light maps. And then of course you select everything and you export via FBX because it will export correctly your both UVs, you know, and you're good to go. You just grab your light maps and you put on the slots of the Standard Plus shader, custom light map slots, and it'll be good to go, and you can change the diffuse whatever you want. Of course, if you want to do a dramatic change in your diffuse, like, okay, I baked this light map for this green sphere, so I have this green spill on the ground, and if in Unity you want to change the diffuse color of this and put it like a red, this is going to be wrong. Okay, and you're gonna have to well, you can go to Photoshop and you know, change this hue, but it'll not be totally correct. I don't know if you can do it, by all means do it, but the best approach is to come back here and render another light map for a red sphere. And as you know, you can put like up to 5 light maps per each material, so you can have one light map for a green sphere, one light map for a red sphere, and you can change them via runtime. Okay, so that's it. I hope you liked it, and if you have any questions, be sure to comment here on YouTube or send me an email, and that's it. Bye bye.